a shifting of the dial on migration. The Prime Minister's trying to say that this is something that we need to talk about across the whole of Europe. What kind of response is he getting?
Yes, Jane, a shifting of the dial in many ways, not only a change of leadership in terms of the UK government, but a change, I would say, in approach. You heard Keir Starmer there talking about resetting relations. This is a theme that really began at NATO last week at that summit in the US, where he saw some of his European counterparts and really digging into that. In terms of the tone, he personally met every single leader that had come. I was told by his team that Keir Starmer personally requested to do that. Why? Well, one of his aides said he wants to set the culture. It's important to him to do things properly. He knows the relationship or the value of relationship building. So that's the tone. In terms of the themes, there's two main themes here. One is migration and illegal migration. The second, of course, is Ukraine. In terms of immigration, this is a Prime Minister that knows to deliver his domestic agenda. He needs the help from European allies in terms of growth and also in terms of trying to deal with those small boats. To that end, he is going to have a dinner with President Macron later. The Starmer team knows how important the relationship with France is. I think we will see some movement on this today. There might be some announcement when the Prime Minister has a press conference later in order to try and deal with upstreaming and some of the issues around trying to disincentivise, if you like, people to try and make these crossings to get into Europe and the UK. So somehow improving their lives where they live in order to try and stop the flow of illegal migration. I think we're going to hear some more on that. But also, he does need to get returns agreements. He does need to do more bilateral deals with European partners. I just spoke to Yvette Cooper, who was saying as much. That is not the work of today, but that's certainly something that Starmer wants to do as he builds on these relationships in the coming months. But as I said, Jane, also Ukraine, very important here today.
And we saw President Zelensky also invoking the words of Churchill as he stood there at Blenheim Palace, strategically sat side by side with Keir Starmer.
Yeah, it's been a very interesting development this morning with President Zelensky arriving. Remember, he's come fresh from that summit of NATO in the US, where allies agreed a big package for Ukraine. Keir Starmer recommitting funding promised by Rishi Sunak for Ukraine, and really allies we saw in the US, in Washington, sort of future-proofing some of the deal that Ukraine is getting from NATO ahead of perhaps a Trump administration, which is looking more likely. But President Zelensky also making a very thinly veiled attack on the Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban, who recently went on a peace mission to Russia, as he put it. The European Union and fellow European leaders have tried to remain united on Ukraine. Viktor Orban has been a thorn in their side. This is what President Zelensky had to say when he addressed the summit earlier today.
We have maintained unity in Europe and are acting together, which means that Putin has missed his primary target. He has failed to create division in Europe. The more decisive Europe is in preserving this unity, the long-lasting peace we will ensure. Putin cannot sustain relationships with truly strong leaders. And this is our advantage. But it remains an advantage only as long as we are united.
So President Zelensky there making an appeal to European Union leaders and other European leaders to stand together, clearly attacking Viktor Orban for his part in advocating a peace mission to Russia, when we know that Ukraine will not enter peace talks if it involves having to cede any territory that is being taken from them by Russia. But it comes at a fragile time for the European Union, for Europe, as it looks like President Trump is in the ascendancy to the race for the White House, and at a time when he's picked a VP, a vice president who is very isolationist when it comes to Ukraine. So tense times, I think, for Zelensky and European leaders. So all the more important to try to stand united here at Blenheim Palace.